I'm going to demonstrate my last ESC video. So the first thing we need to do is set this platform up so that we can calibrate, or even other programming features of the ESC will work with this. This satisfies the whole problem that's been going on for a while, it looks like.
So again, what I've done is I've come into the parameters for ArduPlane, and this arming required parameter right here is a 0, which means disabled, which means arming is not required. It arms immediately. And down here in initial mode, right here, mine's always set to 0. And the reason for that is when I go to the field, the first thing I try to do is get out my computer and get a USB cable on it and get it powered up and get it plugged into the flight controller so that the GPS, which is usually powered by that flight controller, can start getting satellites locked up. INS can settle down, everything. It just warms up. And then after I've got that connection made, I'll go ahead and start unpacking the rest of my stuff. Now, during that, if it's in stabilized mode or fly-by-wire A or any of that other stuff, the servos can just start hunting around, just moving around seemingly for no reason whatsoever. In manual mode, it just sits there. There's no signals going to the servos because the radio's not really even at that point. And that's why I use an initial mode of 0. I've considered fly-by-wire A, as I said earlier today, and then of course there's others like auto would have been perfect for. Is auto still in there? Whoa. Manual, circle, stabilized training, acro, fly-by-wire A, fly-by-wire B, cruise, there it is, 10, auto. Yeah, that's how for the Spark Fun Autonomous Vehicles competition, everybody was starting, I don't know, because this version wasn't available then, but something like this was required for starting up your platform just by powering it up. And that makes it start doing its thing because they didn't want you to have any input. But anyway, so that's the way this platform is set up. It has an initial mode of manual, and it has an arming requirement of nothing. The arming requirement is disabled. All right, yeah. Oops, we're back in airspeed. Here we go. Arming required, 0. So let's go over and look at the platform on the bench.
This is that platform. It's the Mini Sky Hunter. I've just got a switch in the power battery cable here just so it's easy to turn on and off. And it's just powered up. And I've purposely made a flaw in the ESC calibration. Let me show you if I can. You'll probably be able to hear the motor here. I'll have to see after the fact. But this red line right here on my radio is the throttle channel. And it's all the way down at 0. Watch what happens as I bring it up. Now look at that. It's getting close to 50% throttle. And there's no activity out of the motor. And you see there the motor started. So I don't get any motor till I'm at 50% throttle. Boy, that'd be bad to take off in. So in my humble opinion, I wouldn't have a good full throttle. That's neither here nor there. We could argue about it. The you still might have the full throttle range. But I did that on purpose to demonstrate what I'm talking about in this video. So now I'm going to turn the platform back off.
Telemetry lost.
And I'm just going to cycle the radio for kicks and grins. And real quick, let's go over
Welcome to OpenTX.
to the computer and look at one other thing.
Manual mode. High rates.
The real heart of this matter is finding out exactly what ESC you're going to be programming. This is what I am going to be programming here. The manufacturer of this part has total control on how it's programmed. You always have to work within the constraints of the manufacturer of the ESC. Some of them in the old days had boards that you plugged in and did programming with, and then later on we have a series of beeps that's really fun. Not really that much fun, but we'll get into that. So, armed with this information, I went out onto the internet to rcelectricalparts.com, and here's their user guide for their ESCs. This goes through the whole thing. I think there's 27 pages here. That might be what bothers a lot of people. Right straight up out of the index. First time use, throttle range calibration. So here's throttle range calibration. So I'm going to encapsulate this for you real quick because there's a problem in this. In step 3 here, at the end of step 3, they tell you to proceed to step 3. So you're forever round robin here. But basically, this flow chart says it best. We'll leave the text alone here. Put the throttle at maximum throttle position on your radio. Plug in the ESC. Wait until the ESC starts beeping. While the ESC is beeping, put the throttle in the minimum position. Wait for a set of confirmation beeps. Unplug the ESC. That ESC is then ready to be used. There's some tongue-in-cheek here because you're actually going to be putting this into programming mode, and it's a series of a group of 4 beeps. Sometimes it's a group of 4. It's 4 groups of 4 beeps each, but we'll get into that. And what happens is the first 4 sequence, that's the time period you have to do certain things in the programming of this ESC. Once that time period is elapsed, it'll start beeping, indication of that the next parameter in the programming instruction is ready to be programmed, and it'll give you 4 of whatever set of sounds it makes for that. And then once that time is gone, it'll go to the 3rd programming function. So you have to make your decision within the 4 sets of beeps that are the same. If you wait too long, you'll be into the next programming function. I know that doesn't sound very understandable at this point, but this is the way this particular ESC manufacturer chose to do their programming. And here in text, it says put the transmitter's throttle in maximum throttle position, power up the ESC, wait about 5 seconds for the motor to start sounding a short beep. It's actually one of 4 beeps for the first parameter in the programming section. That's the one we want to get in on. The ESC repeats these short beeps a total of 4 times. Here's where they're telling you it's only going to do this beep 4 times, and then it's going to go on to the next 4, and then the next 4, and then the next 4. Just ignore this line right here, make it like it's not there. So, well, part of it. While the motor's making those short beeps within the time period, move the throttle to the minimum throttle position is what you want to do. After a few seconds, you'll hear the motor make 2 short beeps followed by 2 long beeps to confirm that the throttle range calibration has been completed. You're not really done at that point. You have to power down the ESC, and that's when everything is locked in. Now, when you power it up the next time, you'll be ready to go. And the throttle range calibration is complete, and you're ready to use it. Now, I'm going to jump down real quick. Let's see if we can go back to the top and get to it through the index and just explain just a little bit more in the programming area. Now here are the programmings you can change. There are 22 of them for this ESC. Here's the tone sequence. Remember I told you there's going to be a group of 4. Notice through this whole thing, here's 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. But also notice it's a different sound. Yeah, well, it's actually the same sound it's making up here, except for right here, it's going to do 2 of them 4 times. Here, it's going to do 3 of those 4 times. Here, it's going to be doing 4 of those 4 times, etc., etc., etc. Understanding the beeps of this thing isn't that hard. The only thing you have to understand is for each left to right programming thing here, there will be time enough to hear 4 of a certain kind of beeps. These are A beeps. Then it's going to go on for signal 4 B beeps, 4C, 4D, 4E, 4AA. In other words, whatever beep it has here, it'll do those real quick together. Beep, beep. It'll hesitate, it'll go beep, beep, hesitate, beep, beep, hesitate, beep, beep, and then it'll go on to this one. So while it's in this time period of these 4 tones, you drop the throttle and it programs this particular item. If you let it get into this, where it's giving you this, well, you'll hear it. It's the 4th different tone from the top. Keeping this chart handy and following it with your finger isn't a bad thing to do, and the thing is beeping just to keep track of where you're at in the sequence. I do that a lot. I have always done it. So if you want to program this ESC as a LiPo or lithium ion battery, while it's doing these 4 sets of beeps, you drop the throttle. If you drop the throttle while it's doing these 4, the C beeps, it'll set it for nickel metal hydride or nickel cadmium battery. And that's the way it works for all of this. You want to set a low voltage protection for 3.2 volts, then you wait until you're in these 4 tones. There's 4 sets of these tones. That's also the 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. It's also tone 25, 26, 27, and 28 if you want to think about it that way. And then it changes again for 29, 30, 31, 32. It's a lot of beeps, a whole lot of beeping going on, especially if you're wanting to program something way down in this programming, because you got to wait for all these beeps to go by before you can get to, oh, look, reverse motor direction's way down in it. You know, you reverse the motor direction by switching around any of the 3 motor wires between the ESC and the motor direction will change. Just take any 2 of them and swap them in the connectors. Did I say any 3? But also in a lot of these ESCs now, you have a way of doing it right here in programming item 18 while it's making this 4 sets of CCCC beeps, drop the throttle. Now that also takes it out of programming mode. I hope that's clear. So basically, we're pretty lucky for this. We're just going to calibrate the throttle. So we're going to wait until that first set of 4 beeps and drop the throttle while it's in the 4 beeps. Now, I'm going to go, I think my brake is set on right now, and I want it set off. So I'm going to, for my demonstration, I'm going to actually let it get into the second set of tones so we can see how those tones change after 4. And then I'll come in a second time and do the throttle calibration during the first 4. But we got to kind of see how this tone thing works. That's the secret to all of this. Oh, up here it tells you that an A is a short beep, a B is 3 counting beeps, C is gradual changing sound plus a beep, D is a low beep, E is a long beep. So whatever. And that's the way everything in this ESC is programmed. The only thing I'm worried about right now is I want my brake off. I think it's on right now. And I want to calibrate my throttle because, as you saw, I actually have a bad throttle calibration on this platform right now.
I'm going to set my throttle high, and then I'm going to turn on the ESC and we'll listen for some beeps.
RF signal. Critical. Telemetry recovered.
Second set. So I let the first set of 4 go by for throttle calibration. So I'm going to still have that. Whoops, I'd have to.
Telemetry lost.
Cycle the ESC.
Telemetry
And now I would have no brake, but I also won't have a fixed throttle. See, that's almost 50% again, and I have no motor movement. 50%. So it's still not a good throttle. So let's now do the throttle calibration. See how fast the first 4 beeps went by? And if you didn't understand the whole programming thing, you wouldn't even know that beeps 5, 6, 7, and 8s for a whole different programming feature. Oh, by the way. Oh, yeah, the brake is gone. Yeah, I don't like brakes. So now again, we go back full throttle.
Telemetry recovered. Transmitter battery low.
Oops. That is a feature of the ESC. This particular ESC, if it sees a high throttle and it's not supposed to, it will beep at you. So what you have to do is just leave the throttle high and just restart the calibration over again. And that's just kind of how this particular ESC works. There comes 3. So I lowered the throttle. There's my 2 short beeps, my 2 long beeps. Now I throttle down again. So you see, I waited all the way to the 3rd beep that time of the 4. I almost didn't get there in time. And you see, you lower the throttle later on the wrong one, you accidentally change your battery route. So it's kind of a pain in the posterior. But let's turn it back on.
Telemetry recovered.
Well, here are our beeps for normal startup. 3 for the number of cells. And then long and the short instead of just one long to signify the brake is off. It also tells you. Now watch this. Ooh, look at where that throttle is now. It's way down at the bottom and already giving me some RPMs. By the time I get up to 50% now, I'm going to be cooking. Now, what we talked about earlier is the last calibration may have had me from the 1950 microsecond pulse width up here to 50% as far as the number, but getting the full throttle in there, I don't know about that. But you've got a whole lot more control now of the same throttle through a longer throw, so the increments are smaller in it. So whether the other one where what I did there was when I was in a throttle calibration, it had it at the top. I just lowered it to the halfway point as if that was the bottom. And that's how I got that funky ESC calibration going on for this demonstration. So I don't know if the full range of the motor was in there or just part of it. But I do know no matter what, when you've got the full range of the throw of the lever, you've got more control and more little increments that you can do in that amount of throw. So nothing beats an ESC calibration. And that's how you do it in ArduPlane. I don't know why mission planners clicking on ESC calibration doesn't work. It would seem like it would put the platform in a temporary one boot, arm disabled, and mode manual, initial mode manual, and do exactly what it's supposed to do, but it doesn't. Now this particular ESC, you remember when I had the throttle high, again, if I turn it off and I go throttle high again and turn it on, this ESC warns about a high throttle at power up by doing a bunch of short beeps. So you don't get in trouble in the field. And there it goes going, no, you've got the throttle high, buddy. You're going to get hurt. This could be a quad or whatever. But if you go ahead and leave everything the way it is and turn it off, when you turn it back on, you're kind of saying to it, yes, I know what you normally would do, but I've told you this twice in a row now. You do what I say. And the second time it'll start going through its programming beeps. All of that's technically in that user guide. It's going to start the beeps again. We'll sort of listen for a sequence of them. There's your first type. There's your second type. Second type. There's the third type. Oops. I don't want to lower the throttle because I don't have my list in front of me. I don't know which one it's in right now. So imagine you can just turn it off right now without lowering the throttle and it won't program anything. Or I can just let it go through the whole sequence. But you can hear how there's a group of four different tones, and that's the time period it gives you. Pretty crazy, isn't it? Okay, so I'm just going to turn it off rather than lowering my throttle and accidentally selecting something I didn't want to do. Now I'm going to go back over there in private and read the manual to see if I just accidentally screwed it up or not. But no, I'm sure I've still got my proper throttle where I will have start up right there on the bottom, you see. That's where I want it. All right, guys. Thank you.